Welcome to Gold AI Partners, the podcast where we bring you conversations with some of the most influential leaders in real estate investing. On this show, we uncover how top investors, brokers, lenders, and innovators are navigating today's market, scaling their portfolios and adapting to the shifts in the industry. I'm your host, Indhira Santos, and today's episode is titled, What Top Real Estate Investors Do Differently: Lessons in Finding Good Deals. And our guest today is a prime example of that. It's someone who has built an incredible career as both a thought leader, a practitioner in real estate, and is Kevin Shortle. Is a best-selling author, national speaker, and real estate note consultant with over 17 years of combined sales and training expertise. He's not only proven himself as the top sales producer, but has also been integral in creating multiple engaging and informative training programs for investors nationwide. Kevin is an adept communicator, trainer, and consultant who leverages a wide array of media, from live training to podcasts, to educate and inspire both new and seasoned real estate professionals. Kevin, welcome to the show. It's an honor to have you here.
Oh, thank you very much. My pleasure.
Of course. So we're going to start with a little bit of a background story because when I was doing my research on you, you've worn so many hats. I saw that you've been an author, a speaker, a consultant, and then I stumbled upon this very interesting one, a bartender. So can you share your journey into real estate investing space, and how did you become one of the top voices in note investing specifically?
Sure. Yeah, no problem. So you want me to go way back to bartending, huh?
Yeah, like how
I
did
actually
that?
started, I'm in Florida and I grew up in Fort Lauderdale. And so my bartending started very early, 18 years old. I actually went to a bartending school to learn it properly. And I started bartending all through college and everything else. But I just thought it was a good way to socialize and to, I'm kind of an extroverted person to begin with, but I'm convinced it helped me with speaking and everything later on, because I was very comfortable around people and starting conversations and some of the
social butterfly
social skills, that you get being a bartender. But I really enjoyed that. But my goal really was very early on. I wanted to get into real estate, and the only real estate I knew about is the real estate most people are familiar with, which is buy and rent, buy, fix up, and resell. That kind of model. So I just had a keen interest in it, and I pursued it immediately out of college, and I just did a business administration degree in college, and I jumped right into real estate on the appraisal side of things. So I was a commercial real estate appraiser, did some residential appraising, and that lasted for a couple of years. And then I just decided, you know what, it looks like the big money's in real estate sales, so I got to go into real estate sales. And I tried that for a good solid year. I gave myself a year commitment, and I just couldn't make a go of it. It was really tough, and I was young. I was really knowledgeable about the business. In fact, the company, which was a ERA, I don't even know if you know that brand.
I do
it was
not.
a franchise. They became Better Homes and Garden after that. But ERA, Electronic Realty Associates, was the franchise back then. And I just was really struggling with sales, and none of the other salespeople are there to help you, right? They're all there to make money too. But the owners of the company knew that I knew the valuation side of things, which is really important. So they asked me if I would get up and speak in front of the group every month on a different topic on, appraisal background and that sort of thing. So that was really my introduction into speaking. So it was kind of ironic. Here I am not making any money and selling real estate. Everybody else in the room is, but I knew I had some skill sets that they didn't have. And so I left that, but I did buy my first investment property while I was a real estate agent. And that kind of got me going. And I didn't know anything
This was a traditional
notes
deal
at the time. Yeah, traditional real estate. See, back then, and I'm dating myself here, but back then, we had what we were called A&Q loans, A&Q, which stand for assumable non-qualified. You don't have those anymore. So there were these
never heard of
loans.
it.
Yeah, there's A&Q loans. So VA had them, FHA had them, and traditional lenders had them, where the first place I bought, the guy came in to sell his townhome, and I looked at it, I said, well, I'll buy it. It never made it to MLS. I bought it because I could just assume his payments. There was no assumable non-qualified. I didn't have to qualify. I didn't have to fill out paperwork. All I do is just sign a document to agree to start making the payments. So that was the
Interesting.
first one. That was the first one that I bought, and then I rented one of the rooms out on that one. But it was still challenging to get started in the investments, especially if you don't have capital and things like that. And I know people run into that today. And for me, it got to the point where I said, well, maybe I need to go a little different direction. I started really looking at financial planning and getting into that space. But I ran into a guy who told me about real estate notes, and I'd never heard about it either myself. And we're going back now probably 36 years ago when I first was getting started in notes. And you're right, the attraction to it was I could do it from my home. We can do deals nationwide. I didn't need any of my own money. I never had to deal with tenants or anything like that. And obviously, I can see by your reaction, it's intriguing. It's like, well, how does
Yeah.
that?
Because when I
Wait a
was doing
minute.
my research,
Yeah,
what I came across was, okay, buying a real estate note would mean buying the loan that a person has,
yeah.
but then don't you need the money to buy the loan?
Well, see, here's the thing that I learned early on. There were companies, one of them still around today. They've been in the business for 50 years. Like I said, I've been in it for about 36 now. And they still to this day buy $8 to $10 million worth of notes every single month.
Wow.
And they've done that consistently for 50 years. And now they're backed by a bank. So just to back up for everybody, I don't buy traditional real estate anymore. Although, as you've researched me, I've done over 150 flips. I've done a
Yeah.
money lending. I've done all kinds of things. But on the note side, the simplest way I could explain it is if you live in a house right now and you're paying a mortgage, you've probably received one of those letters where you no longer pay Bank of America, you now pay Wells Fargo, something like that. Well, what happened? Well, your note got sold,
Mm.
and so in my business, instead of you paying Bank of America, you now pay me. Okay,
Okay.
so I own the debt on the property, but you still own the property itself. So don't call me with toilets leaking, the roof is leaking,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
needs to be fixed. I don't own the property, I have nothing to do with it, which also means I don't have the liability of ownership either. Right? Something happens on the property, it's not me, but I do have an insurable right on that property if the property were to have some kind of hazard to it, catches on fire, that sort of thing. Then I'm a part of the insurance on that. So you make income like a bank, basically. You are the bank. You
Literally.
become the bank. So people pay you the monthly payments, but I don't deal with the tenants and the toilets and all that sort of stuff at all. Because again, you don't call Bank of America if something
Yeah,
happens
no.
at your house.
None of
So
them.
I make the money as a bank would and get the benefits from all of that. And of course, the security in that is that the property is backing my investment.
Hmm.
If you want to stay in the property, you got to pay. It's very simple. As long as
Yeah.
you're paying your mortgage, everything's cool and you'll never hear a word from me, at
Mm-hmm.
all. If you're not paying, then you'll hear from what we call a servicing company. So all of these loans I board with a professional servicing company. They're the ones who collect the monthly payments. They're the ones who call you for late fees and things like that if you're missing
Yeah,
a
same as a
payment.
bank.
Exactly.
So you're
And
essentially
so,
just the bank. And I wonder what
yeah.
do you think makes this approach so like stand out so much?
Well, because the other part, and I'll circle back around, how did I do that with no money? Because I just said I buy the debt on the
Yeah.
property. Well, what I learned was this. The biggest skill that you need to have in a lot of things is the ability to identify a deal. That's really what you're doing, whether it's traditional real estate or real estate notes. It's the skill set of the ability to identify a deal.
Mm-hmm.
So these big companies like First National, who's been around 50 years, I was telling you about, they're buying these notes every single month. They've got the money. What they need are the deals. So I found out, well, what kind of deals are you looking for? What do you specialize in? And then I would go out and find those deals, bring them to them, and then I could make a fee.
Okay. To
Okay,
charge
so I
them.
started making fee income, is what we call it. Very similar to what more traditional real estate investors do what we used to call flipping, although that definition's changed over the years a little bit. Traditional flipping years ago was not buying the property, fixing it up, and selling it. It was simply finding the property, getting it under contract where you had the right to buy it, but then you'd assign that to somebody else. Okay. So on the note business, it works a little bit differently. Like if you were selling a note, like you owned the note itself. Now, maybe what you did was you inherited a house. Let me paint a scenario like that. You inherit a house, and so you own it free and clear. But for you, it's not. Yes, it's nice that you have this windfall, but now you got to upkeep it. You got to pay the taxes. You got to do all this other stuff. And you say, I'm going to sell it, and you're having trouble selling it, and you say, I'll finance it. I don't want to pay all the taxes right now, so somebody give me 10% down, 20% down, whatever, and then you collect the monthly payments. Okay. And at some point, something happens and you say, gee, you know what? I'd really rather cash out. And that's where someone like me would scour public records. I would actually buy a database, basically. I can buy the name, address of people who own notes nationwide for about 10 cents, 12 cents a name, right? So I could reach out to you and say, hey, would you be interested in having a lump sum of $80,000 next month, or are you happy with the $700 a month that you're collecting, whatever the payments might be? So I would find that deal. I would get all the questions. I'd bring it over to them, and they would give me an offer. If it's an $80,000 note, maybe they say we'll pay $70,000 for it because they buy them at a discount.
Interesting.
Right? And then I come back to you and I go, we'll give you $65,000.
Loan sum.
Okay, so you accept 65. I already know they're paying 70. I just created a $5,000 spread, and then they take over the deal and close it. So that is the fee income. But of course, now when you have the money, yes, you invest in these directly with your own capital, with IRAs, 401ks, all those things. It's allowable investment. I partner with people on deals, so it's whether you have the money or not, you can participate. It's just at what level.
Yeah. And I wonder, what are you doing differently when it comes to finding those quality deals? Because people can be in your business, but they might not know how to find a quality deal.
Yeah, and a part of that is inventory is more readily available today. So the note space, when I first started, was a niche, an absolute niche. Not many people at all heard about it. A lot more people today, but still, someone like yourself with experience in real estate, you're like, what? What's this?
I'm like, what is that?
I get that all the time, right? That's why I have a book on Amazon, #1 seller, real estate without renters. That's kind of my theme. So with this business, I lost my train of thought there. With this business, it's a matter of the inventory is easier to find. That's where I was. So back in the day, it was difficult, and the only way that we really could find notes back 30 something plus years ago was you had a data mine, if you will. So you had to buy a list. There were companies that would go out and scrape. These are early days of the internet, nothing like AI has today, but you would have to scrape the internet to find people that had recorded mortgage notes that were non-banks. So I remember before that, I had to go to the go to the courthouse physically, the registrar's office, and go through books, and you'd scan down the list and you go Bank of America, Wells Fargo, blah, blah, blah. And then you go, oh, John Smith sold to Sally Sue, and Sally Sue's carrying back the paper, or John's carrying back the paper. So I knew that was a potential lead. And obviously, this is back before cell phones and everything else, everybody. So, that was the only way that we had to do it. And then the advent of the internet came on where they could do that more electronically, pull in those leads, and then I just buy the leads instead of me spending time at the courthouse on microfiche. You know what that is?
No.
I know you got a young audience, I'm sure. Microfilm was, you would go to the courthouse and everything was recorded, but on basically a tape, a vinyl tape.
Oh, yes.
And you would have to sit in front of the thing and have it go through, and you're like scrolling through, searching documents. That's what we had to do. So when you were able to buy a lead list, that's when I scaled my business, because that's when I said, well, look, instead of me spending my time and my 2 eyes looking for deals at the courthouse, I can now teach other people how to do what I do. I can supply them with the leads. They can do the direct marketing from there, which was direct mail. And then when they find a deal, bring it to me, I'll get it purchased. I make a fee, they make a fee. And that's how I grew from nobody in the industry to a top 10 company within about the first year and a half. And after that, a top 10, top 5 company, from there on. So I was able to scale that up from that.
Yeah.
Today, the inventory is much, much, much easier to find. There are trading platforms online. There is known sellers in the industry that sell in bulk. And part of that's, building relationships and things like that, and knowing where to go. So it's not really today in this business, where do I find the inventory, as it really is to how do I do my due diligence on it? How do I research it? And I use a lot more AI today than I ever have. I mean, it's absolutely amazing because the property itself for me is not what I'm buying, but it is my collateral. So I do have to know what the value is. I do have to understand the area. Are the prices going up, going down? What's the crime rate? What are the demographics? All these sorts of things that I can look at. And it's so easy today with AI to get on there and say, hey, I'm a note investor, do the role playing thing. And what's the, you're charged with doing a fair market value report, use 3 comparable sales, use 3 listings. And so, all the prompting that's done with AI, I look at that, and I still look at the traditional sites. I'll look at Zillow, I'll look at, Trulia, I'll look at homes.com, realtor.com, those sorts of things, because it's quick, it's easy. So then it's looking at the paperwork, and understanding it. So just like you would, if you're going out and you're doing rehab properties, which most people can at least identify with, well, what do? You look at the property and you're trying to come up with, what is it worth now? What's it going to be worth after I fix it up? What's it going to cost me to fix it up in time and money? And then what would that profit margin be at that point in time? So with me, I'm looking at what is the collateral worth? Okay, if something were to go wrong, if I'm not being paid, then I have to take some legal action. And thankfully, I've never had to foreclose on anybody. It's not my goal.
Wow.
It's not anybody's goal to get in this business and foreclose on people. I've had to threaten it. It's unfortunate, but you do have to threaten it sometimes, because people just play games and they don't want to respond to anything. And finally they get hey, we're filing foreclosure. Like, whoa, time out. Now they want to talk,
Yeah, they call you. Yeah.
And then they find out, they call the servicing company, right? But they find out that we're not the bad guy. We can help them, know? And so this market grew when we had the big crash in 2008 and 9. That's what really put the note business at a whole different level, because what had happened was there was over 10.5 million people that were facing foreclosure. They were delinquent on their loans, which is massive. And the banks the government tried to clean it up, couldn't do it. Then you had the Blackstones and all those big companies try to come in, they couldn't fix it. And it really came down to smaller investors like myself and our bigger counterparts that ended up being able to buy all those things up and then trickle them down and sell them to individuals, because we were able to buy them so cheap. I mean, we were buying non-performing notes, meaning people aren't making payments for years, for 4 or 5 years.
And you were already in it. In 2008, you were already in the notes.
Exactly.
Oh, perfect. Oh my God.
Big time.
So you've always had like that consistent deal flow.
Yeah.
So
we were buying stuff 20, 30 cents on the dollar. I mean, it was absolutely crazy. And that got that got cleaned up. So today, the inventory that we see is much more steady, much more readily available, and it's more on the performing side right now.
Yeah,
and I wonder, fantastic, and it's a great way to go too, because it's very, very passive. So to give you a realistic example, just using easy numbers your listeners can follow along with. The typical home right now that backs these investments is worth about $120,000. And the people might only owe $50,000. And a lot of those came from seller financed notes. When you think about it, banks don't do under $80,000 loans. And you still have a lot of homes in middle America that are $80,000, they need $80,000 loans or less back several years ago. So maybe somebody bought a house from an investor who bought the property, fixed it up, and sold it with financing. and they financed them for $60,000, and the people put $10,000 down. They bought the house for 80. Well, fast forward 5 years, now the house is worth 120. They owe about 70 or $60,000, and I come in and buy that for 50 to 60,000. We always buy it at a discount. So my risk is I'm investing maybe $50,000, but it's backed by something worth 120. So you look at that and you go, well, how can you really lose? And the answer is, well, you really can't. Even if property values drop 20%, I'm still okay because I'm only in it for $50,000. So we look at the risk, but then we also look at what's our return. And seller financing just in general is higher than bank rates, right? If you're selling a house that you own, let's say free and clear, if they can get a bank loan, we'll go get a bank loan. You're going to pay 6-7% right now. Right. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to finance it from somebody, you're going to go, we're going to make that 9 or 10%.
What are those strategies that you're using that most beginners overlook when it comes to sourcing?
When it comes to sourcing, it's getting involved in the industry. So we have industry events, and that's a good place to start.
Like networking.
You can get online and start to research and see who are the note sellers. The challenge is, who are the good players, who are the bad players? Not that we have a lot of bad players, but you don't want to get involved with somebody who's like rebrokering. In other words, they don't own the note. They kind of front it like they do own the note, but they don't own the note. Mm-hmm. They're getting it from somebody else, and that somebody else doesn't really own the note because they got it from somebody else actually knows it. You don't want this chain of brokers, so to speak, in the middle there. So you want to work with direct sources. And that can be from trading platform type of folks. It can be from direct known big sellers. So there's companies, for example, that buy from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So for those who don't know, Fannie Mae, Federal National Mortgage Association, right?
Yeah.
The real world, the way this works is, a lot of people don't understand this. If you go to a bank and get a loan, you have to promise to pay it back, right? So you sign a note and you sign a mortgage. Well, that's what we buy, is the note and the mortgage. So it's called the note industry, but we buy secured notes. The security part's the mortgage, right? So that's that note is created, and the bank who originated that loan immediately sells that to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or Ginnie Mae, which are all government entities, right? So Fannie Mae buys the note, but the bank still collects the monthly payment. So the banks really are servicing companies for Fannie Mae.
Yeah.
Okay. And they'll stay on there. They have responsibilities and things like that now through the new Dodd-Frank Act and everything, which happened in the crash. So Fannie Mae will sell non-performing notes probably 6-7 times a year now. And you could Google search, for example, Fannie Mae NPL sale, non-performing loan sale. And you'll see monthly or quarterly reports that show you, okay, for example, there was some guys that I know, they bought $7.5 million package of non-performing loans directly from Fannie Mae.
Wow, and that's where you come in too.
So those bigger companies generally raise capital from other investors, right? So they have a pool of money. They buy direct from Fannie Mae. Now, what they'll do direct from Fannie Mae is they will then figure out which ones they want to just turn around and sell quickly. In other words, they could buy it for a nickel, sell for a dime sort of thing, or which ones they want to try to work out. Because if you're buying non-performing notes, well, the note has a problem, right? It's right in the title, non-performing. So you've got to be able to identify, what those problems are, what's it going to cost you to fix. But again, that's just like fixing a rehab house.
Yeah,
you have a non-performing house. It's like, it needs work. We know that going in. That's why we're getting a discount. Well, let's identify what we need to do to fix this. What's it going to cost in time and money?
Yeah. How do you recommend those investors to keep, since you started so early and you had that chance in 2008, those people that don't have that chance anymore, how do you recommend them to keep a strong pipeline and of opportunities?
Well, I'll give your people a tip right now. I don't mind sharing even some sources. There's a company called PaperStack. And PaperStack has a website, paperstack.com, no K on the end. And I trained those guys. I know those guys. I taught them the business 12, 15 years ago.
Wow.
They're here in Central Florida where I am as well. So I know them very, very well. In fact, their office is probably 4 or 5 miles down the road. But they saw in our industry we were definitely behind technology wise, right? So it started, didn't even have internet, didn't have all that stuff, going to the courthouse, doing all that work. As I said, graduating to, if you will, now we do have the internet, we can buy lead lists. But even when they learned the business from me, I think it was about 12 to 15 years ago, again, we didn't have a place where buyers and sellers could really get together, a trading platform. So they saw within our industry a lack of something, right? So they saw a problem. They came up with a solution, which was let's create a trading platform. And that's what we have. And we probably buy 4 or 5 notes a month from just that one platform, and that's just one place. They usually have about 200 notes on there at all times. And
these are performing notes, not non-performing. Okay.
It's a mix. They provide the trading platform, but now you have individual sellers that list their notes for sale there.
Okay.
So inventory wise, though, yes, there's a lot more performing notes today than non-performing notes. I would say it's probably 90% performing, 10% non-performing right now.
Okay. And I see that you are like super active on social media. I see your YouTube videos. I saw the shorts. I saw the Wednesday. I forgot the name, but it was Wednesday something. You do something every Wednesday. Yes. So since you've built such a strong brand as an educator, how important do you think visibility and content is for investors who want to attract partners or deals?
Yeah, it's like anything else. You got to pay for your education one way or another. You do. You can either try it on your own school of hard knocks. Look, you're going to pay for it because you're going to make mistakes, and you might get lucky and you take off right away. But sometimes all it takes is one big mistake to really hurt you, versus learning from someone like myself who has all the connections, who's got the experience, who's got the reputation, and been around. I mean, as you saw, there's plenty of information about me.
Plenty of content. You think that has that brought you deals? Posting?
Yeah. And I've been around, a while in this business. One of the OG, as people would say today.
Yeah,
there's
pioneers.
There's not many people have been around in this industry for 36 some odd years, and so with that experience, it's just I'm not normally surprised by anything. I see different things that other people miss. I'm very disciplined in my approach, but I teach it in a way that people can follow some kind of a systematic approach. And what I think that works, and I know it works because this is the way the world works. I chose about 8 years ago now to really become a true mentor. And I know that name gets tossed around, it gets diluted. Mastermind definition is completely diluted from what the original intent was. And, when you look at what a true mentorship is, it's working one-on-one with somebody for a common goal, for a common thing. So nobody in our industry offered that. Everybody offered, books and videos. Now I was going to say tapes. We used to do books and tapes. My first program was a spiral notebook with 8 cassette tapes and a manual in it. So
the content has brought you in deals.
What's that?
Has the content brought you in deals? Has it acted as a lead magnet? Like you posting that content?
Because people find me and they understand that they're looking for education, but they're not just looking for, here's a course, go read about it, and maybe you can jump on a group session, which some people are calling masterminds, which is not the true definition of a mastermind, but they'll get on one group session a month. I said, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this the way it really works in the real world, which is, I don't care if you're a professional athlete or you're a carpenter or something like that. You got to be right next to as a carpenter working with a seasoned pro. That's the quickest way to learn. And you're learning from all those years of experience. So when I opened up my mentorship program, I purposely set it up where people through Zoom can schedule, through Calendly, they can schedule as many one-on-one sessions with me as they want to.
Very, very smart.
Because that's the way it works. The business doesn't work in, okay, here's what we did today, and I'll talk to you next month. You're going to lose a deal. You can't do that. Sometimes it might be 3-4 days in a row you need me, or it might be something that just comes up and you're like, Kevin, I got, boom, schedule a call. And we get on Zoom, we go through everything, so the ability today to share screens and to look at documents together, to do the research, to show you the patterns and of what I take and what I look for is really invaluable. And the investment for that is extremely reasonable.
There are many moving parts in a deal, and like communication seems to become like a bottleneck sometimes. So how do you advise investors to manage communication like effectively with partners, lenders, buyers, so that the deals don't fall through the crack because slow follow-ups or missed touch points?
Yeah, I'm really good at that. So I have a partnership program as well. And we're closing on another deal. Our part's already done. We're just waiting on the seller to sign what we call the assignment of mortgage and the launch of the note. And then we're pretty much done with the deal at that point in time. So with my partner, I just emailed her earlier today. Like, I saw the report, everything, because the seller had to mail documents to an auditor. Auditor puts a report. I look at the report and go, yeah, great. Everything is there. Super. This one had a missing note, but they had a lost note affidavit and a copy. Fine. I'm probably getting into too much detail, but things like that. I just verified the documents are there in that report. And then I signed off on that. And now we're just waiting for the note seller to assign the note over and the mortgage over to us. And those have to be signed online. It takes 5 minutes, but people are busy. So I emailed her today just explaining the whole situation. Like, I saw the report, I approved everything. Now we're just waiting on this. The next thing we're going to do is have you make sure that you're set up with the servicing company. And that'll be the next thing that we'll do. So yeah, it's important to guide people along the way. And PaperStack is where I'm buying this deal from, the what I just mentioned before, and they're really good about that. When they set this thing up, you are everything that you do. Like, they could tell that I approved the note seller could tell that I approved the audit report, because as soon as I click on that button, it automatically emails them saying that this party has already done this, and you're able to communicate back and forth. So even that it did that, I just wrote back, hey, we're all set. Just when you can, sign the documents, and we're good to go. So the communication is important. For sure on that.
What role do you think that testimonials have in case studies in building credibility for an investor like you? Because you come from something that not a lot of people know about. So do you use case studies, or do you just like, I'm so confident that if I talk about it, they're gonna buy, or I'm gonna get the note?
As you saw on my YouTube channel, I use a lot of case studies. Now the short videos, just the tip of the day when I'm walking around town here. I don't have a lot of those come from conversations. Almost all of them come from conversations that I had either the day before or the morning of, before I go on my walk. So there are real things that are happening. And that's why when I'm walking, I just kind of think of them and just do like a 2-minute thing. But I have some longer form videos on there, especially at the Water Cooler Wednesday that you mentioned.
Yeah, I saw.
I take real case studies and show the PowerPoints and tell the stories. Now, case studies that's the way the best public speakers are storytellers. That's what they do. And you build these case studies. And what's awesome about what I do, my clients are closing on so many deals. I just create, new case studies pretty much every single week, which is awesome. But that's a great way to not only, to really teach the business, but it's a great way for people to learn, because it's inherent in us as human beings. We remember stories. Yeah. If I just taught techniques and the special verbiage that every industry seems to have, people can't remember the name of the technique, but they go, I'm doing a deal like, you remember that deal you did with Susan Miller?
Yeah.
I'm doing something very similar to that. They'll remember the story.
It brings
they won't
relatability.
Remember the name of the technique or something. Yeah.
Yeah, because people like to invest in something they can relate to. Like, if I can't relate, then I don't see an opportunity, because I just don't feel like if somebody else that's not like me did it, I just don't know if I can do it, because I haven't heard nobody like me do it.
Yeah. I start my presentation and explaining to people. I have a list of, here's what I don't want to do anymore. I don't want to go out and go to foreclosure sales. I've done all that. I don't want to go out and look at properties anymore. I don't want to deal
That's a
with
good one.
contractors anymore. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I want to be able to travel, so I'd have like a list of here's what I don't want, here's what I do want. And that's where I'm building my case for this form of real estate, because we are in real estate. It's just we're the opposite side of the same coin. You've got
Yeah,
real estate,
literally.
but this is the financing side of real estate, and even if you're just a real estate investor, incorporating the financial side of it will open up opportunities. I teach people how to create good quality notes. So we have a lot of real estate investors who now buy property, they turn around and sell it, but they can't find buyers because of interest rates or whatever it is. People need to go bank financing. Now what they're finding is, well, we can offer our own financing. And a lot of real estate investors shied away from that because they're like, no, I need my money out of the deal now. I got a loan, I got to pay back and this sort of thing. And what they're realizing is if they create a note the right way, a note that has value, they can turn around and sell that within a couple of months and be done with it and be able to cash out without taking a huge discount.
Yeah,
if
that's
they know
just
how
like
to
a house
create it.
flipping.
Yeah, the problem was years ago, the real estate investors didn't know how to create a good quality note, and they would look at us and go, you guys, your discounts are too high. It's like, no, you created a garbage note, basically, so you're going to get garbage prices on it. I mean, it's as simple as that. Create a good quality note, you'll get a good offer on it. But we always have to weigh out our risk and reward. I mean, that's just smart investing.
Yeah. And I wonder, what are your goals with so much that you have achieved already? What are your personal goals, or I mean, like for your business? Because I feel like for somebody like you, like your business becomes your personal life. So in the next 6 to 12 months, like whether in training, consulting, or real estate note investing, what are your goals?
I spend most of my time on Zoom helping my clients. And I also
Mentoring,
have,
okay.
but I also have the partnership program. So I'm still actively buying notes with them. And when I'm investing with somebody, it also means that, I'm putting my own money in the deal with them. And that way, if something goes wrong or anything like that, I mean, I'm there to fix that up. And I enjoy that. I created this program about 8 years ago. There's nothing like it in the industry. And I don't think anybody will copy what I'm doing simply because it's more labor intensive. It would be easier for me just to go watch the videos, do that online. It's already there, but that's not really how the world works. And I enjoy it. So I work by appointment only. So some days, I might have a full day with 6 to 8 appointments. There's other days I've only got 1 or 2. And I'm okay with that because inevitably what happens if you're teaching people at a high level, which I do, they're no longer dependent upon me for everything. Because nobody wants to come in and hire a mentor but you don't learn along the way, because then you have to have a mentor for the rest of your life on that topic. So when I open this up to unlimited consulting one-on-one with me personally, there was an initial concern of, well, how many clients could I take on? And that would affect pricing and everything else. And so what I found, though, very early on, after working with me from 4 to 6 months, depending upon where you're coming from, they don't need me to find inventory anymore. They don't need me to be their financial calculator anymore. They don't need me to go through an analysis of the paperwork. They don't need me to go on public records with them anymore. They know how to do that. But what they still want to do is say, well, I think I'm good on this deal. I already made an offer on it, but hey, Kevin, can we take a look at it together just to make sure
Walk me
I didn't
through
miss
it.
anything? You know what I mean? And that's just smart, because sometimes they do miss some stuff. And other times I'll get to go, you know what? You did this the right way. You did perfect on that one. You checked this, you did that. Don't forget about property insurance or whatever it is. And they're good to go. So I've got people who've been with me for 4 or 5 years. And, I have the monthly consulting after the first year is like $75 a month. That's it. So it's less than you're paying for a couple of your live streaming Netflix and all that other stuff. And I've got people who've been with me 4 or 5 years on that, and I might hear from them twice a year, 3 times a year sometimes, because they don't need me for everything. But if they're selling a note or they're selling a partial,
but they still want you there just in case
something happens with the note, to have me on retainer for whatever that comes out to, $800 something dollars a year, it's worth it. Plus, I do group sessions every other Wednesday night, going over new case studies and all that. So you're right. I put a lot of content on social media, but I also have content in deeper detail that I go over with my clients on our client only sessions as well. All the tools, all the contracts, all the all the stuff that you need for the business. So
you seem to have everything figured out. So I wonder, like, if you had any, or if there's anything that can be solved, like a bottleneck for investors in the type of real estate investing that you do, if it can be solved with AI, whether that's finding deals, communication, building credibility, what would that be?
Yeah, 100%. I prefer Grok. That's been my favorite AI program. I use that quite a bit. This morning I've had 78 notes on a spreadsheet. Someone selling.
Wow.
And I uploaded that to Grok and explained it to what I was looking for and give me the top 5 out of this list. So you got to teach it to analyze that.
Yeah.
That can save a lot of time. I haven't 100% perfected that just yet, because when I looked at what it picked, I was like, no, not 100% what I'm looking for. So, getting the prompting right and all that's a part of it. Also, but just seeing the collateral, and some of the properties I looked at that it picked, I'm like, I just don't like the look of that place. It needs a lot of work, or something like that, and then just move on. But I use it for that. I use it for coming up with property values as another source, as I mentioned. I look at it. There's been a couple of times I've used it for legal stuff, where I had a property that it was a note that I was looking to buy, and there was, based on the title report that I ordered, all right, so we still ordered title reports, and when I got that back, there was utility bills for about $8,000. So it's a pretty significant amount of money, considering the note balance was only $28,000. So it's pretty substantial. So I told the seller, I said, look, you can take that off the price we agreed to, because it's got to be paid. And I said, I know it has to be paid because I went through AI and said, okay, I own this note, or I'm buying this note in this particular state. It's got these kind of utility bills unpaid on it. There's liens on there. How enforceable are those liens? Do they have the right to foreclose? That sort of thing. And they're considered in that particular state superior liens that can foreclose. So that's a problem for me. So I told the seller, because we hadn't bought the note yet, I said, either you got to pay those, the borrower has to pay those, or I got to pay those. So if I got to pay it, we got to take it off the price. But if you pay for it, then we'll go as is. But it's really up. The borrower should pay for it. They just didn't have the money. So I've looked it up. I've used it for things like that, for various laws. One of the things in our industry that's impossible to do is, how can I keep up with every single mortgage law in every state? Every single foreclosure law changes in every state. It just can't happen. Ironically enough, one of the states that I really don't invest in is where you're from, up in New York.
New York, yeah. New York is just, it sucks. The real estate laws are just so sucky.
And I've been telling these people for years, I said, just don't buy anything. It's not worth it. And that was reconfirmed at an industry event. There was an attorney who specializes in New York. And she said flat out, she goes, New York takes 5 years on an uncontested foreclosure. Wow. And if it's contested, it's even longer. And you're like, well, why would I buy a note there? And then people find out it's going to take 5 years. So they just go ahead. Start the foreclosure process, and I'll see you in 5 years, and it's just like, nah.
Yeah. Oh my God, Kevin, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. That has made me rethink my thoughts about investing, because just yesterday we went to see like a multifamily property, but then my partner's dad has been going through this thing with like a what are they called when they don't want to move out and they haven't been paying rent. So we're like rethinking, we're like, maybe should we invest here? Should we not? So we are kind of like thinking what to do next. So it was awesome that we had this conversation, because instead of doing traditional, then maybe we could get into this. And I think our listeners are going to get so much value from hearing your perspective on what separates top investors from the rest, and why real estate notes should not ever get overlooked. Thank you so much for being in this podcast today. Hey, it was welcome. A pleasure.
Let me say this. I've got a free video series right now that anybody can get and download. And it's
Yeah,
got some
yeah.
really good case studies and how I look at deals. Just go to my website. You can see my
Yeah,
name,
please
I
tell
think,
us
on
where
your
we can
screen.
find you. That was something that I was gonna ask,
Yeah,
definitely.
just go to kevinshortle.com, Shortle. I know it looks like Shortle.
Shortle, yes.
kevinshortle.com. That's okay. kevinshortle.com, and you'll see it right there. It'll say, watch the free video. Click on that. It'll drop you to the bottom of the page, and you'll be able to download a four-part video series. It's about, I think, an hour, hour and a half of content. But it's really good. It's different than what you'll find on social media because I'm kind of taking you through the deals, showing you the financial calculations and that sort of stuff. So it's really good.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So I'm gonna stop the recording now.